All right, so taking a look at the next question here. This question says Freddie has $256 in his bank account. On Monday, he deposited $50 more into his account. On Tuesday, he withdrew $87 to buy a bicycle. How much money did Freddie have in his bank account after he took out the money on Tuesday? Which equation represents the situation? All right, so we're looking for an equation that represents how would we essentially solve this problem. All right, so by looking at this here, we already see that Freddie has $256. What did they just give you? They gave you a total. All right, so when we have a total, what two operations are usually associated with this? We know that it's going to be either division or subtraction. All right. So we have a total here. It says on Monday he deposited $50 more into his bank account. You have the word deposited and you also have the word more. All right, so when someone deposits money into their bank account, essentially they're taking the cash and they're putting it into their account to make their total more. So in this case, we understand that the word deposited means addition, and the word more in this case would also mean addition as well. It says on Tuesday, he withdrew $87 to buy a bicycle. Now, this is a pretty big word, withdrew. All right, so if I need to buy a bike or if I want to buy a bike, I need to take out some money out of my account. So you need to ask yourself, did I lose money by taking the money out or did I add money by taking the money out? In this case, withdraw or withdrew would mean to subtract. So taking this knowledge and using it step by step, you can kind of form your equation here. You already know that you're going to start out with $256. You're going to add $50 more to your account, and then you're going to take away the $87 that is in your account. So which equation represents what you just heard? So essentially, you're going to do your total plus the $50, what you deposit, and then you're going to subtract what you just withdrew, which is the $87. Because remember, withdrew means to subtract. So which equation matches the one we wrote up here? The answer would not be A because it has that plus 87. That's what makes it wrong. Okay, 256 minus $50. That's what makes B wrong because we're not subtracting the $50. We are adding the $50. C says 256 plus 50 minus 87 equals 219. That one is correct. And then D says 256 minus 50. That's what makes this wrong. So the answer in this case would be C. All right. Now moving on to the next question here. This one says complete the number sentence to make the comparison true. So now we're comparing two numbers. So up here at the top, we have our top number of 66,823 is less than one of the numbers listed at the bottom. All right. So which number will be less than 600, or I would say 66,823. All right, by looking at this question here, we can start with the first one that we see, which is 66,328. All right, so 328 would make this number here at the top look too big. All right, remember, it has to be less than, so that makes this one, that will be greater than the number we have written at the top. This number we have written at the top would be greater than the 328. All right, B says 66,832. So here we have 823. Over here we have 832. All right, this one would be correct because the number at the top would make this number here bigger. So that would be less than. All right, the number 65,823, of course, would make the number at the top greater than. That won't be wrong. And then this one says 66,819. You're looking at the ones, the tens, and the hundreds place. Again, that makes the number at the top look too big. You need a number at the top that can make it less. And in this case, this one will be correct. 66,832. Okay. because this number is greater than this one. So you have your less and you have your greater number here. All right. Moving on to this question here, it says Chris's basketball team scored a total of 543 points in his first 4 games. They scored 93 points in their first game. They scored 21 points in their second game, and then they scored 32 points in their third game. How many points did they score in their 4th game? All right, so looking at this word problem here, you're going to have to do some computations, which is just some math. But they pretty much give you what you need to know. All right. So we have 4 games being played here, but they already told you what the total number of points was out of all 4 games. Okay. So when you have a total, remember, you're going to be subtracting here to find how many points did he receive in the 4th game. All right, so by looking at this, you want to start out with what you have of your total. So that's going to be 543 minus the first game, which is 93, minus the second game, which is 21, and then minus the third game, which is 32. That will get us to our 4th game. All right, so by looking at this, we're going to have to do some math here, and let's go ahead and set this up now and figure this out. So by looking at this, we have 543 minus 93. All right, so I've already used 2 of my numbers that I have in my equation at the top. All right, so if I subtract this correctly, I know that 3 minus 3 is 0. I cannot do 4 minus 9, so I need to go to my neighbor and I need to borrow. So when I do that, I'm going to turn this 5 into a 4, and I'm going to turn this 4 into a 14 because I'm borrowing 1 from my neighbor. So that becomes a 14. So now if I do 14 minus 9, that's going to get me to 5. And then I have 4 minus nothing. I bring that down. That makes 450. All right. So I've already used 2 of my numbers here, and I'm going to take this 450 and I'm going to bring it up, and I'm going to do it by subtracted by the next number, which is 21. So I'm going to do 450 minus 21. All right. So if I do this correctly here, I know that I cannot do 0 minus 1. So I need to borrow 1 from my neighbor. All right. So that becomes a 4. And the 0 becomes a 10 because I borrowed what? 1. I borrowed a 1 from my neighbor. Remember, my neighbor had some sugar of 1. I need to take that sugar, and I'm going to leave that one less in my tens place, which becomes a 4. Okay, so I know that 10 minus 1 is 9. And I know that 4 minus 2 is 2. And I have 4 minus nothing, which makes 4. So now I'm left with 429. All right. So now I've already used the 21. Now I have one more number left to determine how many points he scored in the 4th game. So I'm going to take this 429 and bring it to the top. So I'm going to do 429 minus the 32. All right, so 429 minus 32. I know that 9 minus 2 is 7. I cannot do 2 minus 3, so I need to borrow 1 from my neighbor, which makes this 2 a 12, and I'm going to take away 1, which makes this a 3. I know that 12 minus 3 is 9, and 3 minus nothing in this case would be 3. So the answer that I'm left with is 397. All right, that will be C. Now to check my work here, because you always have to check your work with subtraction, is you can simply say that in the 4th game, that equals 397, and you can add up all of these numbers to determine if that gets you to your total of 543. So I can do 397 plus 93 plus 21 plus 32. And again, I'm just checking my subtraction here to see if I'm correct, and I can use the V method here to make that determination. All right, so I know that 397 plus 93 is going to get me to 490. All right, so now I'm going to do 490 plus that 21. Okay, so 490 plus 21, that makes 511. And now I'm going to do 511 plus 32. Again, let me see if I get to my total. That gets me to 543. So did I get my total? Yes, I did, which means my answer most definitely will be C. All right, moving on to the next question. It says Erica's goal is to practice playing her guitar for 500 minutes a week. On Sunday, she practiced for 145 minutes. On Tuesday, she practiced for 41 minutes. The question says, how many more minutes does Erica need to practice in order to meet her goal? All right, so now let's pull out information to analyze the word problem. All right, so what do you notice with the first sentence? They gave us a what? They gave us a total here of 500. And remember, when we have a total, what are we going to be doing? We're either going to divide or we're going to subtract. Have a total. Okay, but in this case, we're not doing anything with the word each. We're not looking for anything in each, so in this case, we're most likely going to be subtracting. It also says how many more minutes. Okay, so we're looking for how many more minutes. That tells you that you need to subtract in order to figure out what the missing part is. So if I use a representational model here to set this up, I know that I have my total of 500 minutes, and this is going to really help me when it comes to solving my problem. So I have 500 minutes, and I have a part for 145, so that will be here. And then I have another part for 41, and then I'm missing a third part to get to my total of 500. So now all you have to do is subtract. So I'm going to do 500, set this up as an equation, minus 145 minus 41 will give me my missing part. All right, so now let's go ahead and set this up the way I know how to subtract. So we're going to do 500 minus 145. All right, so this is a double zero by a number, especially when it comes to subtraction. So let's try to figure this out. So by looking at this here, I have 500. So I cannot borrow one because I'm trying to do 0 minus 5. Since I can't borrow one from my neighbor, I gotta go to my other neighbor to make this tens place. I have my ones, my tens, and my hundreds. I gotta borrow one from the hundreds place to make the tens place half one. So I have to turn this 5 into a 4. Okay, I gotta turn this into a 4. Now I can turn this middle number or this middle 0 into a 10. Now I have something to borrow from. That doesn't mean you leave it at 10. Now that you have something to borrow from, that should make it easier for you to subtract. So since I have to borrow 1 from the tens place to make the ones place the number I can use to subtract, I can go ahead and turn this 10 into a 9 and turn this 0 into a 10. Now we can subtract. I know that 10 minus 5, or 10 minus 5 is going to make 5. I know that 9 minus 4 is also going to make 5. And 4 minus 1 is going to be 3. So now I'm left with 355. All right. Now I have one more number to subtract. I'm not done. I'm going to take this 355. I'm going to bring it to the top. And I'm going to subtract 41. All right. Now I have 5 minus 1, which makes 4. I have 5 minus 4, which makes 1, and I have 3 minus nothing, which makes 3. So here I used a representational model to solve my problem, and I used subtraction with double zeros. So in this case, the answer is going to be D, 314, and that's going to be my missing part here.